John M. Chu's Broadway musical adaptation, Wicked, became one of the most successful movies of 2024 despite only covering the first half of the original musical. Wicked is set in the world of The Wizard of Oz, and it tells the origin story of the Wicked Witch of the West. The movie sees Elphaba, a young woman with green skin and magical powers, begin school at Shiz University, initially idolizing the Wizard of Oz and hopeful about creating positive change. However, as the movie progresses, it becomes increasingly clear that something bad is happening to the animals in Wicked. Thanks to its focus on Elphaba's story and her hopes of aiding her animal friends, Wicked differentiates itself from the Wizard of Oz quite quickly, but the two are still intertwined. While Wicked, for Good will provide more insight into Elphaba's story, Wicked already makes it clear that there is more to her than Dorothy knows in the Wizard of Oz. Though Wicked's initial trailer teased the appearance of Dorothy and friends talking to the wizard, these scenes did not appear in Wicked beyond a quick glimpse of Dorothy on the yellow brick road, which is ultimately for the best. Dorothy having more scenes in Wicked would have backfired. It would have drawn attention away from the main story. Dorothy, Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Cowardly Lion in Wicked. Wicked's initial teaser trailer showed Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow entering the Emerald City and speaking to the Wizard of Oz, with him ominously saying, "Bring her to me," to the group. While this was undoubtedly intriguing to audiences who were learning about Wicked and its connections to the Wizard of Oz for the first time, the scene does not actually make sense to include in the first half of Wicked's story. In fact, including this Dorothy scene in the final version of the movie would have detracted from the main story. Many of Wicked's audience members would not necessarily have seen the stage musical version prior to seeing the film, so introducing Dorothy as a character would have made the movie feel like it was too much about her. Since Dorothy is a character that audiences are largely familiar with, including her in Wicked may have prompted casual audiences to wonder where she is throughout the film rather than focusing on Elphaba and Glinda, since, in the final version, Dorothy is only seen for a few seconds at the very beginning. This creates a spark of intrigue without making the movie too much about her. Especially considering the following scenes show Glinda announcing Elphaba's death to a crowd and then telling the story of how they met, it would not have made sense to fit Dorothy into their school timeline. Instead, just hinting at her appearance later in the story was the perfect way to connect Wicked and the Wizard of Oz without combining the stories too much yet. Dorothy's scenes in Wicked also would have changed the musical. Dorothy is not present in the musical at all. Showing Dorothy and friends in the first trailer for Wicked was also strange, since Dorothy does not appear in the musical at all. Though her character is referenced, the closest thing that audiences get to actually seeing Dorothy is her silhouette at the end of the performance. This moment does help to reinforce the connection between the older movie and the Broadway show, but it also proves that Dorothy is just one very small part of Elphaba's story and only at the very end of the second act at that. What's more, the length of Wicked is the same as the entirety of the Broadway musical despite only covering the first act of the show, meaning that the movie does have more time to explore the dynamics between characters and can include additional events from the Wicked book. Including Dorothy more in the movie adaptation is an understandable way of adding more information to the story. However, it certainly wouldn't have made sense in the first half considering how much it would have changed the events of the Broadway musical. Were Wicked's teased Dorothy scenes ever really meant for the first movie? It makes more sense for them to be from Wicked, for Good. Dorothy and her friends on the yellow brick road in Wicked. Though the Wicked trailers that have been released thus far have understandably been for Wicked, Part 1, the two parts were shot back to back, so it is possible that the scenes showing Dorothy in the Emerald City were always meant for Wicked, for Good. Knowing that, it actually makes complete sense for the Dorothy scenes to have been included as a purposeful misdirect on the part of the trailer editors and marketing team to get audiences excited about a new story set in the world of Oz. Aside from creating added drama within the trailer and getting fans excited, it is likely that the trailers were drawing on the Wizard of Oz characters very intentionally to draw in audiences. For moviegoers who were not familiar with the plot of Wicked prior to the first film's release, showing glimpses of Dorothy in Wicked's trailer gave audiences something recognizable to hold on to. Since The Wizard of Oz is such a beloved film, knowing that another story that takes place in the same universe and focuses on some of the same characters is being released could be a great way to attract new audiences. Wicked 2 is a better movie for Dorothy to appear in. Wicked, for Good overlaps with the events of The Wizard of Oz. Regardless of what Wicked's trailers showed, Wicked, Part 1 worked out perfectly, and there is still plenty of time for Dorothy to make her appearance in Wicked, for Good. The first movie set up all the main characters and really had time to develop them in a way that audiences could love, making its runtime well spent. Now that audiences are invested in Elphaba's story and want to know what happens in Wicked, for Good following the first part's open ending, it is the perfect time for Dorothy to appear. Since the opening scene of Wicked already teased Dorothy's appearance in Ounce, it seems likely that she will show up again in some capacity. Wicked, for Good will focus more on what Elphaba does after she has already been named the Wicked Witch of the West, which eventually overlaps with Dorothy's arrival. Given that The Wizard of Ounce also features scenes where Dorothy and the Wicked Witch interact prior to her melting, it could be possible for Wicked, for Good to approach these same moments from a new perspective, or at least mention them. Given how significantly Dorothy interacts with some of Wicked's characters, including Glinda, it would be a much more natural time for the character to appear in the Wicked movies. Part 1 would have felt rushed if Dorothy had appeared, but Wicked, for Good has a great opportunity to expand on the beloved character as much or as little as is necessary to fully explore Elphaba's story. One thing is certain, Wicked has created a great setup that will be incredibly exciting to see come to completion in November.